Good evening. Pleasure to be here with all of you. First, a disclosure, right? I'm a career Tata Group employee and a career TCS, right? So the closest I've come to being called an entrepreneur is, I think, this podium thing here, right? Which kind of makes it look like I'm one. So hats off to all of you who started being an entrepreneur at such a young age, so many of you, much younger than me. And, it makes me feel terrific to be here with all of you. And, also if you look at my title, so, what is it that, that I'm, talking about here being this? Why is the president of BFSI Platforms here discussing entrepreneurship with all of you on blockchain? Because in the middle of everything else that we do in this business, we have incubated a small business called Quads, which essentially is about creating solutions for blockchain, leveraging DLT and AI. And it shows what a company like TCS can typically do in terms of creating, investing, and incubating such businesses. That's part of my responsibility. I have my colleagues here who help me run this business, which is why I'm here. Also, when you're in TCS and when you run this kind of, when you're an entrepreneur or intrapreneur in TCS, most important thing is you have to make money, right? I think a lot of you will know that TCS is one of the largest cash generating companies, not just in India, but in the world, right? So one big lesson that we have as TCS when we get into anything is you need to create businesses that within a period of 2 to 3 years, as we invest, we have to get to a point where we are giving returns, and in cases like this, returns which are better than what are typically TCS average margins. So maybe there is something that I can talk about in terms of what we do for the enterprise, which is powerful enough for you to take behind in terms of what is adoption out there and what is the way in which a lot of larger enterprises are actually embracing DLT, AI, and why that could mean some good money for a lot of us here in the room. A little bit of, a starting point. Blockchain is foundational in nature. It's something that I want to leave behind. I think in the earlier panel, people spoke about it. I'm taking some examples of foundational technology like Ethernet, 3G and 4G, right? Blockchain is foundational in nature, and foundational technologies take time to be truly absorbed. They take time to reach full potential. They need a lot of killer apps riding on them. Without the killer app, the technology itself cannot take off. And you need the economies of scale. All of this have to come together. If you look at a lot of what I've put there, right, the PCs, I think the famous quote from Watson is something a lot of us know. Over a period of 50 years, and now about 78 years, he was completely wrong. One of the geniuses of the earlier century was completely wrong. It took time though, right? If you look at 3G, how many of you here have used Blackberries? If BlackBerry had stayed there and iPhone had not come, I don't think we would have needed 4G. I am old enough to have used Blackberries. What was BlackBerry? An emailing device plus a few apps. 2.5G, and at best 3G was good enough for BlackBerry. But as the iPhone came and it became a complete world in which the power of what was a mainframe 30 years back is available in your hand with a phone, then the foundational technology takes off. So you need the apps. So blockchain is somewhere like that today, right? In my view, in our recent view, it's a foundational technology on top of which a lot of us have to be building the apps that will take it to a very different level. So what are these apps? That's where the challenge is in creating these apps and in taking these apps to traction. So if you take a typical business landscape today, right? Today's business is very strong on IT. A lot of our companies are incredibly large Indian companies, global companies. That's because we have robust IT infrastructure on top of which companies are run. There's huge automation. Digitalization is a given. I think in the earlier panel, I think it was Varun who spoke about it. I think there was a conversation there, right? That blockchain is not about one enterprise. The challenges come when you start going beyond the walls of your enterprise. Today's inefficiencies are there the minute you go beyond the enterprise. It's not so much there in financial services, there too it is there, but it is lower in financial services where you have what is called STP in terms of straight through processing. It is largely there because there the risk is too high. But in a lot of other industries, it is manual. Straight through processing does not exist. Lots of inefficiencies, complete lack of trust, which means you've got to verify everything, reconcile. So how do you do it? Lots of intermediation. Now this creates huge friction, right? This creates huge friction in terms, when I say friction, I don't mean friction between people. I'm talking about friction between computers, friction between organizations in terms of the smoothness of transaction flow. Friction takes away money. Friction equals loss. It needs to be taken out. And that's where blockchain has a role to play. Because blockchain inherently, and the fact that it is a distributed ledger, creates trust. Trust is the biggest problem when it comes to two organizations having smooth flow. You create trust, transparency, immediately your risk goes down. And when that is real time, time equals risk in a lot of businesses. Time equals loss. I think a lot of you will know what time means when it comes to cash flow. When the cash is not flowing and there is a drag, there's loss. Immutability means that you know that it is true. So when you put these things together, this is what blockchain can give to the large enterprise. And to many of you here who may not be a large enterprise, it is not about you embracing blockchain. It is about you creating the apps and the solutions that large enterprises can leverage in order to take out this friction. And by virtue of that, completely reimagine their businesses. I'll give a couple of examples so that what we are talking about is something that we in TCS have done, a couple of case studies, so that what we are talking about is not in the air, it is not in the future. I'm going to talk from here on a couple of case studies I will take to talk about what's happening today in live systems. Right? This is something that we've done for a Swiss pharma major, one of the largest companies in the world. If you look at what are the challenges that we had to tackle and what are the benefits, it goes without saying that by putting a blockchain leveraged ecosystem in the middle of a pharma major and their downstream ecosystem contractors, what is it that you can take out? Their vendors, their contractors. And like I spoke about, what are the benefits? Just the reduced wait time for payments alone is a benefit that is good enough to justify this entire program. The supply chain inefficiencies of the world are very well known now. So that alone. Elimination of disputes. Otherwise, you're just wasting time on a dispute. Until the dispute is resolved, money does not flow. And we are talking about one of the largest companies in the world. If I can take the name, it is Roche. And it's one of the largest companies in the world. And they have these inefficiencies. You can imagine the number of partners who are affected by that. And even those partners, in a lot of cases, the partners are billion-dollar companies. And even if you are a billion-dollar company, even for us as TCS, we are a multi-billion-dollar company, but we need the cash flow. We need cash. We attract on cash. So that's an example, a real example where we have leveraged our quad solution to create this. If I take one more. Now, this is a bank guarantee ecosystem that we've created in Israel. Very different line of business. Again, it's not a core banking kind of system. We do a lot of core systems. But these are peripheral systems, but these have an ecosystem play. It is not just about the bank. It is about the bank and their partners. And what is it that you can do to take out inefficiencies in the system? Israel is one of the most innovative markets in the world. I think a lot of us know that. They are able to imagine a future in which you have these ecosystems, not a future, a present, in which something like this runs. It's real time bank guarantees. Otherwise, bank guarantees are like bank guarantees, letters of credit are a mess. I think we all know that. And then how is it that you ensure that it is immutable? How is there a single source of truth? How do you ensure compliance? Now, all of this, if you can just imagine, there are about 18 different organizations who are getting integrated into it with one large bank. By the time we are finished with this project, more than 50% of the bank guarantees in Israel will be on our platform. Huge efficiency. What it can do to the entire ecosystem in terms of risk management. So that's the kind of solutions that we are talking about in the enterprise. Very powerful. There's nothing trivial about this. These are all critical, mission critical systems. So I thought I'll just take a couple of examples to say why, what we are talking about and why we are betting on some of this being very critical to the future of all kinds of enterprises. We have 2,000 odd customers. If 25% of them embrace any of this, we have a very large business to run. But none of this can happen if blockchain continues to be where it is today. I spoke about 4G. I think if we go somewhere where we don't have 3G, right, I think all of us know what happens. None of our maps work. Our car systems will not work. Half of what we take for granted will not work the minute our phones say that they are not having data. So advancement is needed. And these advancements come as a combination of pull and push, and it's happening in blockchain today. Performance improvements are a given. The performance improvements that take place today in technology take place at a fraction of the time that it took a generation back. Those of us who've been in the industry for more than 20 years, 25 years, we know that what used to take 10 years for improvement takes 2 years today. It doesn't take 2 months, right? We are not in the ChatGPT threads kind of counting number of users world. But in the real world of performance improvement, it still takes place at a fraction of the time. Security is improved. Green is a big factor. I think everybody thinks that if you use blockchain, you are doing something wrong for the world and there's a carbon problem. Not really true. That's only true if you're doing crypto mining. But even otherwise, blockchain is a little bit more power intensive than most other database technologies, and it is hence important to continuously improve that aspect. Then, of course, when blockchain becomes a data store, and there's lots of data in it, it's in today's world, it is imperative that you also put a layer of AI on top of it to be able to leverage the power of that data. And that is something that we are continuously looking at. And that's what I refer to as AI++ there. We've been talking about a combination of blockchain and AI for the last 4 years. The first time we spoke about blockchain and AI coming together was along with research with MIT, and we had a big showcase of that once on what these two can do together. But that was predictive AI. What more can happen in a world where there is generative AI needs to be explored, but that just as a combination of blockchain and AI on predictive AI is already very powerful today. So these are some advancements which means that they will bring down the wall of resistance for wider adoption of blockchain, bring down the cost of adoption of blockchain, and that again is important for us to be able to move forward in terms of wider adoption. And then of course you need the right solutions. I think people were talking about use cases. When you're talking to serious business, it's not just about the use cases. You need to be able to work with the enterprises to create the right business case. The business case matters much, much more than the use case. The use case is for designers, for analysts. The CFO wants to see the business case. Does it stack up? In a lot of these cases, it does. I'm sure a lot of us are going to be in a world in which most securities will one day be tokenized. It's a no-brainer. There is, just like it is all electronic today, one day it will all be tokenized because it will drive liquidity. There are 10 different things that tokenized securities will drive in capital markets globally. But what you will see here, I just want to leave one key message on this slide. There are a lot of things, a lot of these solutions we are creating today. But most of these solutions are in intersections between what we see as businesses today. Most businesses are segregated by industry lines, banking and financial services, insurance, manufacturing, within that automobiles. But what we are talking about, a lot of the power of blockchain will be driven by the ability to create solutions in intersections between industries, which makes it more complicated to create business cases and to sell it. You probably have to go to the C-suite to sell it, because it's a C-suite that cuts across different business lines in any organization. Having said that, that's where a lot of the power of DLT is. I thought I'll take one last case study closer home, because we are ahead in a number of cases when it comes to financial markets in India. I think we are strongly underrated when it comes to financial markets. The US goes T+1 next year. We went T+1 long back. We are capable of driving huge innovation in our capital markets with incredibly high volumes. And in India, we have two depositories, as most of you who are interested in capital markets will know. We work for both of them. We pretty much work for every single large market infrastructure in India. We do their core business. The one example that I'm taking here, this complete system runs live on blockchain today in Mumbai. It's DLT driven. Bond markets in India are small compared to equities and futures markets, equity futures, but it's a fantastic beginning. There was regulation that was discussed in the earlier panel. There is regulatory support for this. It is in fact driven by SEBI. So there's no lack of regulatory support. There's no lack of regulatory support for the right solution to address the problem that needs to be addressed at that point of time. So I thought it's very important to speak about it. There are a lot of good things. I think a lot of you can read the slide for yourself. We are continuously upgrading the solution. It is again leveraging our Quartz product, and it's live today. It's live here in India. It's a huge ecosystem in which a lot of people have plugged in. So to wrap it up, I've taken like a 5-year time frame here. The source is IDC. I have not tried to put billions and trillions into this. I think lots of dollars are always mentioned when it comes to the future of any technology. I don't know how those are counted. I don't want to know how those are counted. But if you look at it, a lot of these bubbles represent genuine innovation that can take place in the financial industry as we look into the future. So we are clearly past the hype cycle. Blockchain has had a massive hype cycle and a massive downside from the hype cycle, but we are into what is a very reasonable growth cycle. 3-digit growth in servicing this industry is easily possible today. If you are not interested in 3-digit growth in today's economy, I think we would all kill for double-digit growth in today's economy. 3-digit growth is possible. Disintermediation will drive the change. There is regulatory support. I spoke about SEBI. Central banks are driving CBDCs all over the world. There is regulatory support for solutions that can only be done with blockchain, which means that the opportunity is there. But applications and apps will drive the adoption. The adoption is not going to come just because the technology is good, just because the technology is cool to talk about, cool to use, everybody is talking about it. Adoption doesn't come from there. Particularly, enterprise adoption cannot and will not come just because there is technology. It can only come when there is an application and when there is a business case. I think I'll stop with that, with a quote, particularly because I'm in a group of entrepreneurs. I don't want to predict the future. Even Abraham Lincoln didn't want to. So who am I? But I just want to leave with the thing that, there is an opportunity for a lot of us here to create a very different future, completely reimagine it, create a future that will be different because the technology is already good enough for it. Thank you.